Well, my brother's not with me, which means I must be reviewing a horror movie. How terrifying was Terrifier? I'll let you know. Here we go. Welcome to the Cinefanatics. My name's Robert Adams, and I'm here today with a spoiler-free review of Terrifier 2. It's a follow-up to Damien Leone's Terrifier. This is a very strong passion project for him. Obviously, this is a continuation of the character Art the Clown that actually began in a short film of Damien Leone's called The Ninth Circle, moved on to an anthology called All Hallows Eve, and then moved into his own movie, Terrifier, and now we're at Terrifier 2. So that's essentially 4 movies that Art the Clown has been a part of, and he's quickly making himself a major horror icon. I will note real quick that the original Art the Clown was not played by the same actor who is playing him in Terrifier and Terrifier 2, and I'll get more into that here in a little bit. But otherwise, right off the bat, man, this is a movie that you have to be a lover of gore. The gore effects are so plentiful in this movie. Kind of like a step up from the first one. The first one had some really good shocking gore effects, couple of really brutal kills, especially one in particular. If you've watched the first Terrifier, you know what I'm talking about with that. This one just adds more to it. And Damien Leone does have a background in like the special effects, practical effects, and it shows here. Even for these movies being low budget, the special effects, the practical effects that are used are fantastic. My best example is close-ups of any kind of like decapitated heads. Typically the heads look fake, like you can tell it's like a mannequin head with like some blood or maybe like a little bit of like prosthetic stuff and latex or whatever added on to give like that skin, that floppy feeling. Yeah, no, this feels like and looks like a real human head laying there, which is all kinds of creepy, but still knowing that it's fake, I feel like that kind of helps you out just a little bit. But yeah, you have to love gore. If you are even the slightest bit squeamish, this is not the movie for you, much like the first one. Speaking of the first one, I will recommend watch the first one first. There's a lot of good beats in that. There's a lot of story elements a part of it that is kind of fun if you're watching it going into the first one blind and you don't know anything about it. It makes the first one a lot more fun, especially when you see those story beats from the first one, what they do with it in the second movie. I mean, obviously this will spoil the first movie for you, but I feel like it would be a lot more fun if you were slowly introduced by the first Terrifier movie into the second movie, and you have a lot more fun with the world the first movie created. That being said, some of the things I like from the first movie that they carry over to this one is the overall look of the movie. The first movie is extremely very indie, looks very low grade in quality, which me personally, I don't know if I would chalk up to it being an indie, a low budget movie, or if that actually was the look and the feel that Damien Leone was going for with that movie. Either way, he continues it here, and what's funny about that is obviously this movie's got a much bigger budget. I think he tried to raise the money by crowdfunding and went way above and beyond the goal that he was wanting to go to, or the amount he was wanting to raise for this movie. So that being said, there's a much bigger budget, a lot more production value in here, yet it still has that same look and feel as the first one. That low, grainy, almost like an 80s horror movie quality, with a very, very interesting orange and teal filter over it, which I really like. I feel like it adds a lot more character to just the look of the movies overall, and especially when you get into those sections where Art the Clown is just going ham on cutting up someone like they're a piece of ham, like with body parts strewn all over the place, blood all over just that filter and the look and the graininess of it, the aged look of it, I feel like it makes all of that pop just a little bit more, makes it a little bit more realistic. And again, if you're squeamish, that's not what you're wanting to see. For this movie, though, going into it, the story is a lot more expansive than it was in the first one. The first one was very much just a small set piece, takes place at this, warehouse, and there wasn't much to it. Like, it was all just in this one building, and people were just basically coming to Art and throwing themselves at him for him to kill and slaughter all over the place. There really wasn't much more than that. It was very simple. It's just basically setting up Art as a character, not really much more to the story of that. Going and watching Terrifier 2 and how much more story they have, how much more world building is in this, we're outside of just one building. We go like around a city, a school, a rundown carnival. There's more places that we venture off to in this movie, which helps really solidify that we're in a world and not just one building. That being said, that does kind of make the first one, I feel like watching the second one and then going back and watching the first one makes the first one feel like a proof of concept type of like movie, kind of like that leaked Deadpool footage that came out. That was kind of like a proof of concept that a live action Deadpool will work, and that's what got the studios to greenlight the Deadpool movie. That's what I feel like this kind of does for the first one. It makes the first one look like hey, here's this Art the Clown, he's gonna go and slaughter and kill people, and here's the effects that we can do. Would you like to take this concept and make a full-fledged story out of it? That's Terrifier 2. And while the story is building a lot more, we have to add more characters to it. Most all the characters from the first movie were pretty much slaughtered and dead by the end of the first movie. So this movie does a great deal of building up more like protagonist for Art the Clown, and we get a lot more backstory with that. In some cases we get a lot of like character depth in this, as like the first half of the movie is all primarily really focused on these new characters that are going to be the protagonists for the movie, specifically Sienna and her brother. All of this character development from them. In the meantime, we're getting very little Art the Clown. It cuts every once in a while to Art doing something or basically killing more people, but it's more character driven. And I like that because it's really setting up this idea, especially by the end of this movie, you do get kind of like a comic booky feel of the hero and the villain type of situation. And I like what they're doing with that. It's setting this up as a proper movie instead of just a random horror slasher killer, let's show a bunch of gore. There's actually some meat on these bones, as you can see, and that makes it so much bigger than the first movie, than what the first movie was given to us. I love the first movie, but I love what this one's doing even more as far as giving us that story. With that, a lot of this comes because of the acting on this. You've got Lauren Lavera playing Sienna Shaw, who is going to be your lead protagonist for these movies. And man, just seeing the transition that she goes through over the course of this movie is just super impressive. And actually, I feel like feels pretty natural given where her character is at, what she's going through, what she's having to deal with, and then moving into the final act of this movie, what she is essentially becoming by the end of it. And I feel like it plays very well, and yeah, it makes for a great like foil to Art the Clown's activities. So very much appreciate what she brings to the table with this movie. Speaking of Art the Clown though, David Howard Thornton is having the time of his life playing this character. Obviously you can tell he just enjoys playing this. The stuff that he does, like if the Academy would actually acknowledge horror movies, I would want to give him an acting nomination by far. He is doing his movements and the way he does Art the Clown, especially because Art the Clown doesn't talk. A lot of this comes through his physical performance and the way he moves and emotes on his face. Everything is done like perfectly. And it's just the perfect blend of that creepiness, but still fun and comedy to it. This is not a comedic movie, but there's definitely some like absurd comedic moments that Art the Clown has in this that will make you chuckle as long as you are okay with the whole gore. If you understand the world that you're in, there's a lot of funny elements to what Art the Clown does. Just super over the top silliness in the way that he kills people or like would mess with people, torture them a little bit mentally before actually killing them. And David Howard Thornton is just having the time of his life doing that. My only like major takeaway, I would say, for this movie is the length. But I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with the length of this movie. Yes, it is really long. There are definitely some parts of this movie where the camera seems to be focused in on certain like things, whether it's like sitting there holding on like a dead possum for a very long time, or like some of the changes of the scenes, just a lot of that was just holding for a lot longer than I feel like it actually needed to. And because of that added to the runtime of this movie. I feel like that could have been shortened, make this a lot more slimmer, a lot more easily digestible, just getting straight to the point. The other thing about it, though, that I do like from the length of this movie is that makes this movie more of a ride. If you are not a person that likes these kinds of horror movies, but yet you're willing to give it a try, you're going to be watching this, and after about an hour and a half in this movie or so, you're like, okay, I'm pretty good. This movie can end now. I'm tired of seeing all of this. It's been extremely overwhelming. I'm done. No, you're not. You got another about 45 minutes or so to sit through, and that's gonna be some very brutal 45 minutes. So it is essentially a ride. Like, you have to get in that mindset that, like, no, this isn't ending. It's going to keep going, whether you like it or not. And I like that aspect of it too. I don't know if that's what was originally planned when making this movie like 2 hours and like 20 minutes long or so. But I mean, it does feel bulky. It does feel like that runtime, but it plays it very well, especially if you're in the mindset of like, this is just another part that's meant to make you feel uncomfortable while you watch this movie, not just him ripping skin off of people's faces or viscerating people. Just it works very well. But yeah, otherwise I don't have too much to say negative about this movie. If you're not familiar with this kind of genre or this type of movie, there might be parts of it that are really slow for you. There's parts of it that you might not like latch onto quite as well, but this is like a horror movie, and like I said, kind of like saying that there was comic book like elements in the characters of the story, that definitely feels like that. So it's definitely a movie that I would recommend. Go in with an open mind, especially if you're tolerant of this kind of movie. It grows upon the first movie a lot. There's so much more that they add to this movie, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, overall, very much love this movie. This is a great year for horror. We are being treated very well by all the companies who care about horror movies this year. So yeah, I highly recommend give it a shot. If it's playing in your local city right now, go see it in the theater. Just all the gore and viscera and everything on the big screen. Woof. Just it's shocking. But if not, I believe it will be available for streaming pretty soon, probably about within a month or so. So make sure you check that out, especially if you want to challenge yourself. If this isn't the type of movie that you would typically watch, but you want to get some buddies around, you want to make a night out of it and see if y'all can sit through this movie, this would be a fun movie to do that with. So highly recommend, check that out if it is something that you could be potentially into. Otherwise, yeah, love this movie. Would probably give this like a good solid like 4 out of 5 stars. So loved it. Anyways, that's going to be my review for this. What did you think of this movie? Let me know down below. Make sure you hit like on this video and subscribe to the Cinefanatics. You can follow us at Cinefanatics MLP on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me personally at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Otherwise, we'll see you later for the next video that we're doing. My brother will probably be a part of that because it probably won't involve horror movies. Maybe. We'll see. Later.